Hey guys, so I installed this water softener about 6 months ago, and just this last week or so I noticed my shower head was getting plugged up again, so I came out and looked at it to check what's going on. The water was all the way up here. It was not good. It was baffling to me because the thing's brand new, 6 months old. So let me show you how I fixed it, what was actually wrong with it. All right, so the water softener kind of stopped working. It's kind of weird. So the tank filled up with water. I marked a line over here to run it through the recharge cycle and see if it would drain. I was getting error number 3. I haven't looked that up yet. And then it just started purging. So I'm gonna try it again. So now that water is purging out the drain, and it's lowering in the holding tank. There we go. Now there's a constant flow. It's a very, very odd problem. I'm gonna have to do some more research and try and figure out why that happened. So the pump's still running, it's still cycling water, but our tank's not dropping. It is recharging now. It's like 9:45 at night. I usually go to bed at 8, so I'm gonna let this run for a little while, and then I'm gonna unplug it and bypass before I go to bed so I don't flood the house. Weird. First thing I did was I pulled out the float here. So this float is what shuts off the water flow. And when you take this apart, I'm gonna dump some water all over. It's gonna be kind of a messy video. To take this apart, you have to spread that clip and pull it out. I'm gonna set that aside. Then wedge this out. And you just want to make sure that O-ring's intact and in place properly. This is kind of a problem point on some. Not so much this model, thank goodness. And then you just want to verify, I can't get the camera angle right, but that there's no sediment, no debris in there, okay? There is, let's see. So I'm gonna take this whole piece and set it aside so I don't break it. Maybe that's not a good angle, hold on. I don't like doing the wide angle, but maybe that works out better. So the other thing I had to check was this. I pulled that clip, set it aside, and when you pull this out, there's a screen in there. You wanna make sure the entire thing is clean of sediment. I stuck my mouth all the way around it, sealed, and blew everything out. There is a little hole down in here that connects the two. I also blew out this, and I just used my mouth on all this. It was super salty, so, you know, nachos were delicious that night. But I didn't want to use a lot of pressure. I'm not that super familiar with how much pressure this type of thing can handle. Now putting this back together, you take the top side, run it through, and then you just bend this fiberglass rod a little bit, set that back in, and put your clip back on. So in reality, cleaning that was probably a good thing. I don't think that was the culprit of my problem. Let me show you what I believe was the culprit. Another thing, when you do put this back together, you've got to make sure it's all put back, including the lid. The lid is quite important. That clicks right in. Now I'm going to move the camera over here to show what the actual problem was. Okay, before I show you the other thing I cleaned out, I made some marks while this was full of water. This was the top mark because I wanted to see if anything I was doing would cause it to drain. And that first fix, cleaning this out, the float valve, did not cause it to drain. So I siphoned out of this into a 5-gallon bucket, and then I just dumped the bucket in the yard. I got it down to this point right here, and from there, I just knocked over the tripod, oops. From there I left it, and while it was draining, this is the other part that I took apart. Let me get this on the tripod. All right, so here's what I ended up doing. Of course, I took the covers off for easy access. You got to push in the bypass. So now the water's coming in and just going right through into the house, okay? So it's not dealing with the softener unit. Over here, this little valve right here is a siphon valve. So I'm editing this video right now. What the siphon valve does is it allows water to go into the brine tank. It melts some of the salt, turns it into brine, and then the siphon action, the little motor will change the valves and it will pull that water, the brine, into the tank with all the beads in it. It's super weird to explain. Maybe I'll do a video trying to explain how water softeners work. It's absolutely crazy, honestly. But that valve is critical to the proper filling and draining of that the salt well, the main tank where all the salt is. That was my problem. Pretty cool. This one was a little trickier to get to. So I got some electrical strippers because, you know, some needle nose pliers would work fine for that as well to pull that clip. This one, you remove it by pulling it out and up. Now this goes into the float valve, okay? So this is the hose that came to the float valve. What I did with this, it's super tight. I took it apart, and when I was blowing through all of these holes on this valve, these two were plugged. So a little bit of sediment was there, and I think it's just dried salt or something. So I got that loosened up and cleaned out, put it back together. I'll make sure all the connections are tight. I'm afraid maybe it had a little bit of a loose connection, a little bit of air got in there and let the salt crystallize, and that could have caused it to plug. Here's how we put that back in. So just like that. This is not an easy one to film. Super simple. And then you've got to make sure you get your directional locking clip in the right direction. There we go, one-handed. Got to be able to do it, come on. Maybe I can't do it one-handed. Okay, stand by. So clearly I could not do that one-handed. It's pretty difficult to get into there. The other thing I noticed when I was working on it, this hose, take this off the tripod again, this drain hose was cracked. The hose diameter is, the inner diameter is too small for this. And this is what came with the unit. It's kind of a bummer. I could go buy an adapter that'll screw on here and then be the proper outer diameter to fit inside that hose to keep it from cracking. I just trimmed off about 1 inch or so of that, slid it back on, put the clamp on, and then I unplugged the unit, plugged it back in, and I hit recharge now. It started going through its process, and the rest of the video you'll be able to see some of that process. Let's see, so now I've got to add some salt. That thing just does not focus well. All of this salt, I think I've been going through salt way too fast because my water, it hasn't been actually cycling, so that brine was super, super dense. Anyways, now it's all put back together. Remember when you're done to turn the bypass off. Then I'm gonna put the tops back on and be back in business. So the only way to really get this back on is to set one side in and then spread it and set it in. Really quite easy. This one, similar. There you go. Be sure to reset your salt. Let's see. So you can reset the salt. Right now mine's at level 2, right? So in order to set that, you hit mode set. Let me turn this light off, maybe that'll help. There we go. Okay, mode set, and then you can run it up. And it's pointing at salt level. Remember, my sticker's totally crooked, which was awesome from the manufacturer that way. So I set 2, and that's it. 204 days, they say that'll last 204 days. I'm gonna add some more just because I don't want it to run out. Kind of defeats the purpose. Thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe. Share if you like. Have a good one.